Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shift, Real Stories, Real Inspiration, Real Leadership. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Dave Carroll to the Shift conversation. Dave first came into my awareness, I guess, was it 2014, Dave?
I think so.
Yes, that this unknown local person here in our city of Halifax became a YouTube sensation, one of the very first, maybe in the world. I just checked, and according to YouTube, Dave has 23 million views. And I also checked, and Beyonce's new hit has 23 million views. So I don't think Dave would call it a competition, but I think it's really interesting. So I thought I'd give Dave the opportunity to begin maybe talking about that YouTube experience and the impact it had, helping him to get where he is today. I know Dave has told me that he plants his flag in the storytelling space. And because the stories are the thing that separate us, but also bring us together in a way that can move everyone forward. So Dave, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning, Sheila, and thanks for having me on the Shift. I love the title. I love everything about it.
Thank you.
So we met, I don't know when we met. I thought you were referring to maybe 2014, but I thought we met sooner. The video happened in 2009. So that's
2009. Oh, my apologies. Yes, my apologies.
Next year it'll be able to drive.
Yes, get a license.
So my background is as a singer-songwriter and a musician. I played with my brother Don in a band called Sons of Maxwell, named after our dad Max, for 35 years or so now. And in 2009, we had been playing professionally for 20 years. And we had traveled to Chicago. We're going to Nebraska, and United Airlines was our carrier. And turned out that my guitar was seen being thrown around on the tarmac in Chicago, and it got broken. And the airline didn't want to do anything to fix it. And so I promised the airline, after 9 months of trying to get them to take responsibility, and they wouldn't do it, I promised the customer service rep named Miss Earlwig 3 videos. And I saw my guitar sitting beside me. I was typing when she said they were going to do nothing. After all that time of trying, I saw my guitar beside me, and I thought, I'm going to make 3 music videos about this and put it on this thing called YouTube that I'd heard about, because it was pretty new at the time. And fortunately, I had good friends in the music and film industry who donated some of their time to make these 3 videos. And the first one was the one that has the most number of views. It's called United Brakes Guitars. And there are 3 videos up there. There's United Brakes Guitars Song 2 and Song 3. And everybody, for the most part, donated their time. And the first one, it was a $150 budget. And we posted it to YouTube, and it went viral at a time when viral videos really didn't mean a lot to people, myself included. I thought it was something maybe you needed ointment for. And it turned out that my goal was to get 1 million views in the next year with all 3 videos combined, but I hit the 1 million mark in just 4 days, and it continued to go on and on. And because of that, a lot of media and all of the different forms, print media, radio, television, the traditional big ones, wanted to talk about this story, but there were these emerging technologies like Skype and Twitter and all these other things that were emerging as well, and they wanted interviews. So it became this worldwide media frenzy, and sparked interest in this story. And it was a strange time where the traditional media was fueling the views, but the interest in the online was inspiring the traditional media. So the story just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it ended up being the #1 music video in the world for the month of July, and the #6 most watched video of any kind on YouTube for the month of July. And all these other things have spawned since. And so including in that, I guess early on, somebody asked if I wanted to be opening keynote speaker at their annual event, their big company kickoff. And I had never done any speaking before. And that turned into an opportunity that I found I really enjoyed. even though I was really nervous about it. I'd never done any speaking, and suddenly I'm in a room with 700 of the biggest brands in the world and 40-foot projections of my face, and having had no warm-up speeches. It was my first one, and I had to become a speaker. And I found that I really enjoyed it. And I've since been to 34 countries talking about customer service and branding and social media and compassion and kindness and those type of insights that I've taken away from my own story and I've heard from other people. And I've really enjoyed the process of new beginnings and new doors to open and walk through and see what's on the other side that this whole experience has afforded me.
Well, you just mentioned compassion, Dave, and I know, gosh, I don't have a copy of your book here, but I did purchase your book and got your autograph and did the fangirl thing. And one thing that stood out to me in your book was that in your interactions with United Airlines, you were so respectful and never ever you were never really confrontational. You brought that respect and compassion even in the midst of basically a conflict about, you guys broke my guitar. I don't know how much it was worth, but I think it was an expensive guitar. And because most guitars are good guitars, and you just held fast to this through line of how you're going to be with her. And I would guess that is part of the foundation of who you are.
Well, if that's true, and I like to think that it is, I probably got that from my parents. My mom and dad have always been that way, and I've always tried to chain myself to the middle, and haven't always been successful. But I try and chain myself to the middle because that's where you can hear both sides of any argument, and not get pulled or pushed too far one way or the other, where you probably don't want to be anyway. And so my approach was a middle ground approach using humor. I've heard from many people at the beginning, and almost everybody was 100% on board with what I was doing, but some people were upset from the airline, concerned that I was beating up on them unfairly. I remember getting an email from a flight attendant's mother saying, this is how she makes her living, and you're in danger of, hurting the airline to the point where she loses her job and her livelihood. And I think it was clearly extreme in her fears, but I know where they were coming from. And so the way I approached it, I always made sure that Miss Earlwig and I were good buddies and never confrontational. It was the policies, not the company, and not the people, and that sort of thing. Try to find understanding.
Well, that's an interesting comment too, because I'm going to ask you a challenging question. Do you think United Breaks Guitars has contributed to all the situation that is occurring on airlines now, with more conflict and more confrontation? That's not a question I was thinking I would ask, but it just seems to be a cultural thing now. What do you think is going on? What's going on in the world, Dave?
I am concerned with social media and how polarizing it can be. For me, it was a breath of fresh air. When in 2009, when this came out, this was the best thing ever, because customers were at the other extreme, where you were a victim to whatever customer service rep you got or didn't get that day. And how frustrating was it to have to retell your story over and over again, and only to be told no, with no recourse. All of a sudden, with social media, you didn't have to wait in line. You could just open the window and tell your story, and someone would get back to you pretty quick. And I thought, this is good. In my case, I didn't go nuclear on United. First of all, I wasn't aggressive, as you pointed out, or antagonistic or confrontational. It was more humor based. But I tried for 9 months to get them to do something, and they didn't. And so I said, okay, if you're not going to do anything, I'm going to do this. But social media has quickly evolved, and I think a lot of people have taken a more aggressive approach. So if you have a bad experience, if they lost your luggage, you scream at the top of your lungs without ever calling anybody or expecting
Mm,
some kind of inconvenience, right? It's not ideal, but I think you have to be fair and balanced and understand again that the companies are being run by real people just like you.
mhm,
Um, yeah, I think it's very troubling, and you can almost plot the course of since 2009. My video was one of the first that did it, but it was also the year of the Arab Spring, and the empowerment of people with a cell phone is very real, and that one person with a cell phone can punch above their weight in terms of their storytelling. And so
mhm,
there's a sense of responsibility I think that everybody has to have as well. To like Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility.
mm, mm.
You have to measure yourself, asking, is this appropriate? Is this response appropriate?
Such an important message. Thank you for sharing it so clearly and concisely that we all have a personal responsibility to do our best, and sometimes we fail. You've indicated that even Dave Carroll sometimes doesn't measure up to his own standards, but I would guess that happens very rarely. Um, so let's get back to your story. So this big event happened. I think that's when I first saw you. You were on our local news, I remember, and you've continued to live in our little province, but you've made a worldwide impact, becoming a Hay House author.
Mm.
So what else? What else do you want to share with us about your journey and all the shifts that you've made?
Uh, Maybe one of the big takeaways for me, it happened when I was making that first video, that my goal was to get 1 million views with all 3 videos combined in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And we shot that first video though on $150 budget, and we had a whole lot of fun making it. And by the end of the day, I didn't know what was going to happen with the video, but I decided that it doesn't matter if we get to 1 million with all 3 or even 1 video or whatever, because I was enjoying the process. And
Yes.
always the thing, right? You always want to enjoy the process of what you're doing rather than wait for the destination, because you might not reach that goal that you said you were shooting for at the beginning. And if that's all you're interested in, then you'll feel as though you have wasted your time and get.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can drink up the moments along the way to the destination, if you don't make that, you can still be grateful and still have all sorts of rewarding experiences, new friendships, and learned insights and things like that. And that's kind of been my process for the last 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
The first video, it did hit the mark. It hit it out of the park, but we had a lot of fun. And because we were having fun in the process, you can tell in the video, and that what you see in the video, the campiness of it, translates to how people react to it, which makes them want to share it with their friends. So it's an infectious thing. And you mentioned my Hay House experience. I was a big fan of Wayne Dyer's for many years before United Breaks Guitars. And I remember reading some of these Hay House books and seeing his specials and things like that, and thinking, boy, would that ever be cool to be a Hay House author, but what would I ever talk about? And I was in Boston doing a speaking event and reading one of Wayne Dyer's new books called Excuses Be Gone. And in this book, he was giving a shout out to his daughter's handbag business called Urban Junket. And he just said that she makes these great handbags if you ever want it, type of thing. And I had tried to reach out to Wayne because I wrote a song called Now.
Oh yes, Now. I love that song.
And I wrote that song before United Breaks Guitars as well. And I thought that might be the thing that opened
Yes.
or whatever. And it was inspired partially by Wayne's book called The Power of Intention.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent a message to him and I said, would you like to hear this song, and thanks for the inspiration. And I never heard anything back. And I found out later that he didn't respond to a lot of fan mail and that sort of thing. So I never heard from him. But then when I was reading his book and talking about Urban Junket, I reached out to his daughter, because I know as an entrepreneur, when you're just trying to get your business started, you'll take calls from everybody. And so I reached out to her and I said, I'm a big fan of your dad's. Here's this song called Now that I think he might like, and thank him for the inspiration. And I also did this thing called United Breaks Guitars that you might enjoy watching. And she wrote back and said, I love United Breaks Guitars. I live in San Diego. And Taylor guitars are made not far from San Diego. So she says, my dad's coming from Hawaii in a couple of weeks. I'll share your song Now with him. And a couple of weeks later, sure enough, she wrote back and didn't say anything about Now, but said, my dad is a fan of United Breaks Guitars. And he says you should write a book about this. And he can introduce you to the publisher, Reed Tracy. And so next thing I knew, a week later, I was speaking with Reed Tracy in San Diego and pitched the idea of this United Breaks Guitars book. And I went upstairs and said to my wife, she was just cooking dinner. And I said, yeah, she said, how'd the call go? I said, I got a book deal. And it was that fast. And I went on the road and I was touring with Wayne Dyer and other Louise Hay and other Hay House authors. And it was a really rewarding experience to be into that. And that's kind of been what the last 15 years have been, these new beginnings and opportunities that I had no experience doing, but I try and bring a positive energy into it and say, okay, is this something that I really would like to do? And if it is, I give it my best shot. And more often than not, I land on my feet. And if it doesn't work out, I still have the experience along the way, the process to find value in and gratitude in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, it speaks to the power of story, because United Breaks Guitars is a story. It's put in a song, and as a result of that, these doors just opened up, totally unexpected. So it speaks to your agility as well, your ability to dance in the moment, as we sometimes say in coaching, this ability to dance in the moment. And it's a skill, it's an entrepreneurial skill, but it's also speaks to your talent and your creativity, that you can make YouTube videos that go viral, you can write a book, you can speak to hundreds of people the very first time out, you can write a book, and it's a good book. I really enjoyed the book. I bought it because I knew you slightly, but it's like, wow, this is a really good book. And again, powerful message of staying true to who you are in any situation.
Thank you.
So yes, and I also know that your singing career began long before United Breaks Guitars, with your brother, that kind of thing. And so what's going on now, Dave? Tell me a story about what's going on now, and what's in the future.
Well, right now I am enjoying, one of the things I did during the pandemic is I wrote another book, a children's book called Tom the Tomato Plant.
Oh yes,
There
you go.
It's
Children's author.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a story arc of a tomato plant named Tom. And it was born out of storytelling time with my kids, where I would lie in bed with my kids when they were younger, pre-pandemic times, and just riff stories. And I would sometimes the kids would be allowed to lay the groundwork of what had to be in the story. So sometimes they call my mom Nan. My son Fisher would say, okay, tonight Nan has to wear a jetpack, and she has to fly into the moon and disintegrate it into a million pieces, and then fly back to Earth and land on a giant trampoline and then bounce up to the top of the Empire State Building. And I would have to tell a story that had that in it. And this one day, he was pretty quiet. He didn't have any ideas. And I said, what's wrong? And he told me that I guess they went to church that morning with my dad and my mom, and they were leaving, and it was wintertime, I guess, because Fisher pointed at the cemetery, and he said, what's that? And my dad said, well, that's where you go when you die. And then he probably got distracted with driving, and that was the whole death and dying discussion. And so he was thinking about that all day. So when I got to bed with him, he was upset, and he's like, Dad, I don't want to live in a box under the ground, under the snow for all eternity when I die. And so I came up with the story arc of a tomato plant named Tom, who was smaller than all the rest, and was ignored by everybody, until one day a family comes along, and a little girl sees his potential and persuades her family to come over by taking an interest. And because they loved her, they took an interest in what she took an interest in. And they came over, and the little girl says, but Mommy, can't we give him a forever home? And they bring Tom back to their house, and they put him on a deck on the sunniest spot. And every day Tom's reaching, and he's trying to reach to the sun, because he knows that he'll grow bigger if he can get a little closer to the sun. And eventually he grows 4 big tomatoes for each of the 4 family members, and gets to experience the gratitude from them, which he also gives back to them in the form of his tomatoes. And he watches them from the deck as they're enjoying the tomatoes he grew just for them as it starts to snow. And he starts to remember what he was before a tomato plant, and notices that his vines were starting to wisen, but he never really noticed because he was so encapsulated in the growing process and doing what he was here to do. So he takes one last look and he closes his eyes and he lets sleep come. And that's the story of Tom the Tomato Plant. And so it's a book and a story that I deliberately wrote for many levels, and I didn't talk down to the reader. It's a story that I bring them up and introduce them to the concept of living life on purpose, and this whole idea of life not being about a beginning and an ending, but it's all about the process in the middle. And so my kids like that, but adults also like it. And so I'm now playing school shows all over Nova Scotia and the Maritimes, and just going in and incorporating all the things I do. I'll talk a little bit about the United Breaks Guitars thing, because every kid wants to have a viral video, and they think it's just as easy.
That's true.
Growing it up. And then I go into Tom the Tomato Plant, and then I finish with just singing for the fun of it and get everybody up dancing and singing and moving, including the teachers. And it's a really fun gig. So I'm enjoying that right this second. And the next thing, I guess this is the exciting and nervous part of starting something new. I've decided that I'm going to run for politics, or I'm going to try and see how far I can go with it. I'm going to try and win the nomination for the Conservatives here in my riding, and try and make a change to something I think needs a change. And I've never been in politics before, although I did have a political science degree and I've been passionate about it.
Okay.
It's just now I'm at a point where in my life where I'm thinking about leaving behind a better world than the one I'm seeing right now, and what I can do to do that. And yeah, so it's time maybe for me to roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty and make the change that I don't see our politicians making right now.
So I'll put you on the spot, maybe.
Mhm.
What's your message for Canada as a politician? What kind of changes would you like to make?
Well, I've done these personality tests. I'm sure you've done them or given them to people probably before many times. And invariably, it always comes back that Dave Carroll is about connection and compassion. These are the things that it's been coming out in my music, and it just keeps coming out all the time. And so that's what I believe in. And I think polarization is probably the biggest threat to our country. I think we're being divided. I think probably instead of playing to our strengths and saying, this is what we did well, let's do more of that, we're focusing on the things that we didn't do. And we do this as a country or individually against people. It's just bleeding everywhere, where we find things to pick on for people about. And so I think I would be a moderating force. I still want to chain myself to the center politically as well. I believe in social programs. I just want to know how we're going to pay for them.
Yes.
And that sort of thing. And but socially, I would like to try and bring people together so that we can hear each other. You don't have to agree with everybody all the time, but you can hear a disagreement, and if you are compassionate about it, you could probably learn a few things about somebody else and change your perspective a little bit, soften it a little bit, and agree that, you know, this is good for everybody. Let's create an environment where we can all win and appreciate everybody's differences and uniqueness.
Well, you have my vote, except I'm not in your riding.
We've got a day bed. You can come here for months.
I could move. I have friends on your street.
Yeah.
No, I think it's hugely important, and there's just a common thread in every experience that you've had of bringing people together, taking the middle road, staying as neutral as you can while fostering connection through compassion and listening and all those, emotional intelligence skills that are hugely, hugely important. So I wish you all the best with that, Dave, and I will put a link in for your YouTube video, for your United Breaks guitar book, for your is it Thomas the Tomato Plant?
Just Tom. He's a blue
Oh,
collar.
it's just Tom.
Tom.
Nothing fancy, just Tom.
Yeah.
Just Dave.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, of course, we'll link people up to you. So I know you mentioned to me before we started recording that you're still very interested in visiting elementary schools. with your, that book sounds just wonderful. I absolutely need to get a copy. So I'll check out your link and get myself a copy of the book,
Yeah.
and we'll start spreading the word to our future politician, Dave Carroll.
Thank you, Sheila. Appreciate being on the shift.
Thank you so much for shifting with me.